T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, space nerds. Welcome back to the Launch Sequence podcast. We are live today in a little bit of a different situation than you're probably used to. As you can see, I'm a tomato, for those of you who are watching. If you're not here live, then you might be a little confused, but I'm doing this live. That's right. We are live on Twitch and YouTube, and I am joined by the one, the only Mr. Lorstradamus, Astro Historian, Star Citizen... I think Star Citizen Professional Specialist. Yes, Star Citizen Professionalist. Yes. Let's see, Squadron 42 Killer.
Yes.
My God, there's just so many titles. You're like Daenerys, dude.
I hate
first of his name.
Yeah, first of his name. I hate Squadron. I hate Star Citizen and CIG. I want them to fail.
Yikes.
I'm also a white knight who will say nothing bad about CIG.
Don't let any of your hater rub off on me, dude. I am having camera issues, though, for everybody who's watching.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. And I am sorry that we are a little bit... It's a little bit weird. Let's see. There we go. And I had him muted for the Twitch stream.
It's fine because you've got my lovely, beautiful face, chat. So you can be mesmerized by my stunning gorgeousness. This is the face that launched 1,000 ships, spaceships.
1,000 Cutlass Steels, the most efficient launch party. But today, guys, I've got a journey for you. We're going to take a little look at what's been going on with Star Citizen this year, not necessarily just to look at it through a drama lens, but I want to look at how ships have been releasing, new factions that have been coming in, and generally what the momentum of content is doing to the game and where it's leading people. Because there are a couple possibilities for where Star Citizen goes for the end of the year, with instancing coming up right now, mission givers coming in. It's a little up in the air, but we have some good signs of what's going on. So thought I'd bring Paul in for a little bit of a general Star Citizen chat. We're going to be all over the place today, guys, but it's a long one, so sit back, grab something good to drink or eat, and join us as we discuss, honestly, the craziest depths of space nerdism on the internet right now. Like, why is everybody still following Star Citizen? Why are you still here, Astro Historian? It's been 14 years. They can't get away with this anymore.
Despite my my best efforts and CIG's best efforts, I still kind of want to see what this thing turns into. My desire for like the best game of all time died in like 2014, 2015. And it's been replaced with like I'm fascinated as to how this will turn out. But in all seriousness, I am definitely still interested in seeing what Star Citizen can do, because every so often CIG will come out and be like, hey, take a look at this. And I'm like, I have never seen another game company do this. Please continue to do this. So
yeah, when you can still get novel things done, it is still definitely interesting to be there for. And I think that's probably one of their saving graces, is like a lot of people would definitely not be involved in this project if they weren't allowing people to play the new features coming out and actually see the work going on. Because it's like you said, I mean, from the outside looking in, it's clear enough to most people that something has been going a little bit awry, that things haven't been occurring as fast. But when you get into the depths of it, into the details, you start to realize there are little things here and there that I actually like. And I want to, I don't agree with the rest of the project, but nobody else is doing this. So I want to actually see what's happening.
Well, it's also kind of like we're walking through a graveyard of freshly buried corpses when it comes to video games, and CIG is stumbling through the graveyard, but they haven't fallen yet. So it's kind of like, I'm gonna keep following this dude who's bleeding out and stumbling through the remains of what is the gaming industry, because maybe they'll find a way out.
I'm hopeful. I mean, everybody is hoping that they do one thing or another. I just hope that we get a nice game to play and that they can keep what's currently going on stable. How has the current game been treating you? 4.9 has been out for a little bit. We gotten some maintenance. We got a hot fix. We got the same old bugs, I think, to some extent. But are you getting a feeling of better performance than 4.8?
A little bit. I mean, I don't notice performance changes as much because I'm just so used to the low performance, and I also have a pretty decent rig, so the higher performance works pretty well. It's also tuned towards Star Citizen, so I don't notice the performance changes as much. I did watch 10 Pound 42, who I know is a friend of the channel for you. In front of my channel too, who talked about how the 4.9's got huge FPS bonuses, and there's been some performance boosts here. I think the biggest change is actually not even performance, but it's just the CIG is starting to listen. The changing in the scanning system and the improvements to mining shows that CIG is finally going back and addressing player concerns of specific playability. For those of you who don't know, who haven't tried, if you turn the scanning mode, if you get close enough to a target, you don't even have to target it. It'll automatically start scanning it, which is a huge improvement for scanning gameplay, because it just allows you to see a target in a general area and then turn on your scanning mode and be able to focus down on it before you even get into gun range or any other range. So
yeah, from pretty far away.
Yeah, like 10 kilometers plus. In some cases, before you can even target the target, it'll be able to scan it down and target earlier.
That's been it's probably a little bit low key still, but there has been a core group of like miners and people who are pretty into that kind of gameplay who have been celebrating for the last 7 days straight because of that one.
Yes.
And
it's a good sign, because if they're doing that for miners, they'll do it for us cargo haulers. They'll do it for combat players. They'll do it for FPS players. Like it's clear that they're at least taking a bit seriousness, that roadmap update where they're like, we want to focus on these specific issues. And one of those was mining and scanning issues.
Right.
And so they're tackling those problems. So
that is the other side of that that's really nice, is when you crack a rock open and it splits into like 8 different shards, you don't have to sit there and scan each shard for 2 seconds to figure out what it's made of. They all automatically tell you the material makeup of each different break, which has been, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah.
That's
even
great.
being said in the live chat here right now, Star-Lord said it's got me back into mining, and I've seen that multiple times. And I think that's the interesting place where Star Citizen is like, people will say, I saw somebody saying, oh, this game is dying a slow death. People will say it is, things are not going well. This is bad. They've killed this. What are we going to do? This game's not going to work out. And it's just like the smallest changes can flip people back into the game. A lot of people are saying, I'm not paying attention right now. But if they were able to get the desync together and like get social tools into the game, it would bring so many people back. And so it's hard to look at Star Citizen in the current moment, take a snapshot of the PU, and then make some kind of a flash judgment about how the whole game's trajectory is going, because it can change week to week based on how unstable and how finicky the servers are.
That's kind of a problem, though, is that I think when it comes down to it, CIG experienced, whether they admit it or not, they experienced another 318. 4.8 was 318, and not because the same problems were happening. It was just the volume and magnitude of the issues and how publicly facing and problematic they were. That was almost similar. And I've said it for a long time when I talk about Star Citizen, that perception is reality. This is just the world we live in now, unfortunately, is that it doesn't matter how much you know the technical details or how much CIG can explain something. It doesn't matter. People will come up with their own reasons. They see a buggy game, they see a bad patch, and they'll go, this game is a scam, this game is going to die, these people are cultists, whatever. And one of the things that's the problem is that you and I have both experienced, I know, the game in some really good forms where like you get an experience, you're like, wow, this is amazing, this is great, this is fun, this is engaging. But CIG goes from those highs of like, this is the best game ever, to games dying, it kind of swings, and it's because they can't keep that consistent flow of making the game stable, keeping the game engaging. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge they have going forward, is to try to like level those peaks and valleys out to become more of a consistent experience.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and that seems like it really felt like that was what they wanted to do last year. I mean, we know that they were focusing on Squadron, but their goal last year was just to like have a solid baseline for people to operate on. And I think the hope was that my hope was that they can find a way to continue to do that, because at this point they have to do that. I'm 100% on the boat of it's alpha. They should be putting features in, testing them, and like getting us closer to a finished game. That I'm all about that, but they don't market it that way. They don't talk about it that way. They don't advertise that way, and so I don't think they can do that anymore. And that's created this like expectation where they need to have some kind of a baseline that's stable, even if they're going to keep putting in stuff like instancing and refueling and new features.
There's solutions that are out there that they could do, which they won't do because it would require fundamental restructuring of how they do things.
They rhyme with mech key view.
Yes. No, the thing that I've been talking about, but again, I don't think it'll actually happen, but they could do something like with the mech T view, as it were, is one of the biggest problems is that when they put something in game, they're putting part 1 of 7 into the game. Because the way the game features work is they're all interconnected, so that when you put in, engineering, for instance, and say, give us feedback on engineering, but we don't have Maelstrom, we don't have the new flight model with things like quantum boost, we don't have atmospheric flight surfaces, and all of those things together give us the actual flight experience. So when they say, here's engineering, give us feedback, people are immediately going to look at engineering and compare it to what we already have and go, well, it's worse. It's worse because I now have to do this, this, and this, because they have tuned it for the game that has, armor values and be able to quantum boost, and the flight changes are different, and how the ships react in atmosphere, because in like Squadron, they have all those things. They just don't have them in Star Citizen. So the best solution is to just get a build that has all those things in it and be like, give us feedback on that, which was where the tech preview could come in.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do that. If the second they get something done, they're going to push it into the game, which is good, but then it has the problem where as time goes on, tech debt happens, and then whenever they get the next part in the game, they'll have to go back and fix that problem anyways. So I'm with you on board of the push everything in and have it broken and then fix it later, but they just can't do that anymore. That's where the tech preview though could work, where they could start putting those things out there to give us access, not just Evocati, but everyone access to get feedback on it. And I don't mean feedback as in like, oh, but this doesn't meet my expectations of the perfect spaceflight game. It's more of a, does this work together as a game?
Yeah. Is it breaking the game?
Is it breaking the game? Does it feel like like all the different pieces work together? Is there not necessarily of a, I don't like this because X, it's more of a, this doesn't work because this other thing you've added clashes with this idea. And those are the sorts of feedback that CIG should be seeking, because getting the game out is more important. But we just don't have that yet. So until then, they're going to have to, I think they're going to have to make the experience similar for everybody.
I keep saying it. I really wish that they were just able to do the same thing. We see it on a lot of different games, but my example is Satisfactory, when they had the live build and the experimental build, and it was like, if you wanted to have a normal day of gameplay where you just wanted to play Satisfactory as it's being built, you go into the live build. If you wanted to test their new features and actually see like what's the cutting edge kind of stuff that's not really in the game yet, you do the experimental build. And I think at the end of the day, CIG just doesn't have enough money to do it, and that's why they're not doing it. People are going to laugh their freaking asses off hearing me say that. They've made a bunch of money, sure, but they're not putting it towards Star Citizen at all. They're putting a lot of it towards Squadron, and a lot of it's already been spent. I mean, most of it's already been spent. They've got like $5 million in the bank, right? Or no, they got more than that. But their margins are tight. They're focused on Squadron. They're trying to still fund making ships because that funds everything else. And so I just don't think they have the capacity to be testing this stuff as much as they want to.
No, that's one of the consistent things when I talk with people at CIG off the record and even on the record at like Bar Citizen events, is that like they never have enough resources to do what they need to do, which is funny because one of the things that seems to have happened is that since the conversation with Benoit, about a month ago or earlier this month, they have moved resources into the things that Benoit was talking about and what they were talking about in that roadmap roundup. Right. And it's gotten things changed very quickly because it's easy to fix a lot of these problems. It just required 4 people to do it. And before they only had one person, that person was doing 2 other things. So they're like, that's a fix that I can figure out later. I got to figure out the instancing issue first, rather than how the website connects to the ships so that we can do live updates from the ships. And then they're fixing the Matrix of Lies, so it finally actually reflects the in-game.
Dude, that's crazy.
But that was a resource issue. Like I've talked to people who've worked on the Matrix of Lies, past and present, and all of them have said the same thing: is that like it's one person who's in charge of it, and they're like, I got 4 other things to do. This is my like side project. So actually getting a couple more than one person, or maybe just one person dedicated to it, they could probably knock it out pretty quickly because they have all the back end issues already like set aside for it. It's just that's same thing with like ship naming and a lot of problems that people have been complaining about they're just resource issues. They're not gameplay issues. They can fix it. They just don't because it's not as valuable. So
I do want to clarify to everybody who's listening. Matrix of Lies is the ship matrix on the website.
Yes,
and what he is saying is that the ship matrix, the place where everybody is pointed to go find out the stats for the ships in Star Citizen, has not been accurate. Like, I go to the wiki. I go to the player-run Star Citizen wiki for information on ships because the website itself was so inaccurate for a decade plus. They're finally getting around to fixing it.
And we're talking about basic stuff like type of chip it is, in terms of like it's at certain points the web store would have a different name for like the classification of the ship than the Matrix did. Sometimes it would have completely different size components, weapon loadouts. Often they would use older images like concept images compared to the release version of the ship, so they look somewhat different from each other. So yeah, the community called it the Matrix of Lies because it was just lie. It would just lie to your face, and the comparison stuff was just all very old. So yeah.
Now, I want to go back to something that you said earlier about CIG listening. These changes coming in 4.9, things are looking a little bit more performant. Like you said, 10 Pound did put out a video that showed, at least measurably, he is seeing an improvement in FPS at Lorville, the biggest this year so far. This also coincides with the mining changes and the scanning stuff. As you said, now, when you turn on scanning mode, you get told what mineral you're looking at. There's no longer, well, there are signatures, but now when you scan it, you get told the actual name of the mineral, which is a big improvement, but it also shows a little bit of a move to streamline things, make them a little easier. It obviously makes mining work better for people. They're excited for it to see these improvements, but at the same time, I want to draw people's attention back to something they said about deep space exploration back in the day. So the kind of thing that the folks will roll their eyes at, but yes, CIG has talked about exploration. You can go find it. It's still out there. And they talked about the idea of sending probes out through quantum travel, scanning down signatures, creating beacons for you to then jump to those signatures to see what they are, and the mystery of how your beacons might not get the full signature, so you kind of have to like guess and think about it based on your own experience in the game, based on like how it rendered the signature for you, like the shape, but maybe you don't get the full silhouette. And for a lot of folks, that was kind of an exciting idea of finding things and determining whether or not they were worth your time to actually go travel out to. This change to mining with scanning and just giving you the name of the asteroid is streamlining that process. And I'm not saying these two things are related, but do you feel like there's two different philosophies at play there? And is there a risk of CIG trying to streamline or simplify or make these things work better that could eat into some of that more complex gameplay folks were looking for?
Yes. There's no doubt in my mind that they're streamlining and simplifying some things. But as I'm sure you're aware of, and I'm sure many of the people in the audience are aware of, there's a lot of complicated things in Star Citizen which haven't been released yet, which will eventually be released at some point because they're vital to the gameplay. So I do think that there is probably going to be a simplification of a lot of features in Star Citizen, which is just designed for playability. It's clunkiness. I'm a huge fan of Arma. I have hundreds of hours in Arma 2 and Arma 3. Both in mods and not unmodded. It's a good time to play Arma, but I am not at all unawares of how complicated and clunky playing in Arma is. And I'm sure people who've played in DCS also understand the similar things. Whenever you're looking at any kind of simulation gameplay, an attempted simulation will always have clunk because I can just do this and move my hand closer to the camera. But if I was to do that in a simulation, I would have to be able to look at my hand, move my hand up, and then move my hand back and forth with, say, my mouse. So there was this like a 3 or 4 click process, which is going to take me a lot longer to do than just automatically doing that. And that's just a simple explanation of just like when you do simulations, you have to add clunk to make it work. So what CIG seems to be trying to do is simplify some aspects of the sim so that they can do the more complex additions later. So like the scanning process, I could 100% believe that they'll have at long range scanning resolutions, and that process will be send a probe out or do a long range scan, and you'll get a general idea of what's going on out there. But it's going to require like high-end like scanners. It'll require maybe a probe. Maybe it'll require power to be distributed properly to it, or overclocking. There'll be some sacrifice as part of that, which ends to the sim thing. But the better your scanners are, the better you get of the answer. So like you're rocking a Carrack, you look at something very far away, you know exactly what it is. But if someone's in a terrapin, they have to get closer. You know, that's just gameplay balance.
Yeah.
And it might be simplified in the sense that if that terrapin is half the distance the Carrack is to the location, it can also see what a Carrack can see at twice the range. And with a simple click, that's fine, as long as the simple click also adds some level in the background. And like, we still don't have full integration of engineering yet. We still don't have proper multi-crew gameplay. We still don't have the new scanning tech even in the game. So there's lots of like other factors which we don't have yet. So simplifying some of the processes now to make it easier for players to learn how to play it, and then adding complexity the more high end the missions or the gameplay is, I think it's a good process. It's a good idea for how things work. So,
but can they pull it off?
The simple answer is, yes, they are simplifying it, but they're not making it dumber. Is the hope, at least from based off what CIG has said in the past.
Yeah, and you got a point that like a lot of times the complexity of gameplay can come through this different systems meeting together, not necessarily from a system being complex. Like Salvage's gameplay can be as simple as scraping the hull and pulling components out, but the act of getting to that ship, of maybe moving your way through like a dangerous asteroid belt and scanning down the asteroids and figuring out which ones are actually wreckage versus which ones are minerals, and like maybe the loadouts of being able to carry salvage charges with you and then EVA into the ship and blow certain components, and then like the ship still has oxygen that's pressurized or something. Like all of that adds together to make salvage very interesting, whereas at the end of it you could just be complaining that somebody's shooting a beam at a ship, not paying attention to the fact that there's way more to the gameplay than just that beam.
that beam should be the end result of having discovered it and finding it. And you mentioned like salvage charges, or I was just thinking like maybe even using scanning to be able to tell the composition of the hull, so you know what the hull is even made of if you even want to scrape and salvage that ship, or the understanding using scanning to like understand the composition of the doors that are blocking the components, so you can be like, oh, it's going to require this much of a charge to blow this door open rather than this much of a charge. So there's that like nuance of what level of detonation do you want to be able to get access to? Because if you decide to just slap highest yield you can on a door to get into a ship and you just blow the ship up, it's like, whoops. That's where the complexity can easily be dialed in, and that's just a simple. It's just a button on a charge that you change depending on your scanning results, and that on top of everything else that's before and after that is the complexity. As long as it's not tedious, that's the biggest problem that CIG is going to have to grapple with, is tedium. Because if I go through all that process and I rip a hull apart and I rip everything else I can, I have the perfect charge placements, the perfect charged yields, everything, and then I spent like 2-3 hours doing this one ship, and I get 7,000 credits for my trouble. It's like, why bother? I could do something else and make more money, or I don't get something that is giving me an indication that I'm progressing in some way. That's really the actual issue when it comes to complexity, is how is the juice worth the squeeze? More than just, is it the game fun, but also, is this game fun? And then am I actually getting that V8 at the end, and not just, Kirkland brand tomato juice?
Hey man, Kirkland brand's not bad, all right? They do some good rebranding. And let me tell you, the juice is worth the squeeze. The question is the squeeze pleasurable? That's what needs to matter, You're getting juice at the end, sure. What do you tend to do in game? I want to hear your opinion of whatever it is you like to do in the game for normal gameplay, and how that has changed between 4.8 and 4.9, because I do want to dive in on this. Everybody is sitting here thinking CIG has said before that they want to fix stuff, and they'll say all kinds of words, they'll put out all kinds of videos, and sometimes it might stick for a little bit. But I want to discuss whether or not this feels like it's something that's longer term or not, even though obviously we're still in the first stages.
So I am a entrepreneur of the highest quality. I only help orphans with their artisanal, upcycled medicinal supplements. I have no idea what you're talking about anything else. It's completely legitimate. I tend to work with Our Lady of the Dead Saints, with Sister Ticia Pacheco.
She's all for the kids.
Things. Yes, for the children, for the orphans, for the orphans. But in all seriousness, I tend to do trading. And I will say that trading is... it hasn't really changed much in the last year, because the same problems exist, which is the elevators, the cargo elevators are the problem. They will work sometimes, and there are tricks you can do to get them to work, but often elevators are intentionally broken by players being jerks, or unintentionally broken. There's problems with things like just litters of ships that have been abandoned because of bugs, because of disconnects, whatever reason, that just aren't being cleaned up. And then all of that combined together means that you've got probably a 60%, if I'm being generous, rate of success. And the bigger the load, the more problems you'll probably have, and the more complexity, and like the more locations you have to go to pick up or drop off, the higher the likelihood of failure. And in 4.8 and 4.9, I haven't seen much of a difference in that gameplay. It still seems to be about the same. But it comes down to the freight elevators are the problem. It's not necessarily the problem of the actual missions, because usually the missions will complete if you can get the cargo into the final location. It's getting the cargo into the elevator or out of the elevator, which is the problem.
Yeah, the cargo situation for me in 4.9 is worse than it was in 4.8. I'm taking missions and I show up to locations and I don't even get cargo sometimes. Sometimes it's at only the second location. Sometimes it never shows up. And then these people are calling me asking me where the heck their RAM is because they put in an order 2 days ago from Hurston to deliver it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Hurston's keeping it for themselves. So you see how much it costs?
Well, someone also was pointing out, it's like, oh yeah, the player broke the elevators for 15 years. First off, the elevators haven't been around for that long, but that is correct. It's not just the players. It's also, there's something going on in the background that's causing problems with bugs. But it's noticeable when you go to an elevator and it says blocked because X thing, and it's like that X thing CIG didn't put a bottle of Slam or a bottle of Cruise into the like invisible boundary between where the elevator is and the like the door. Yeah, that's a player or or an elevator breaking often because players will just backspace on top of them, which blocks the elevator or causes issues. Like I said, there are workarounds you can get it to work, but I think that has more of a fundamental issue specifically with elevators. I mean, how cargo elevators have become such a focal point. They're so important to the game for everything that CIG needs to focus on them, and CIG seems to have built them, had some problems last year where they sort of made some changes and then just ignored it, doing small fixes here and there, which is what Benoit even talked about, how like they needed to go back and fundamentally relook at elevators in a way that is more automated, similar to the transit system that they hardened. So
with hindsight, obviously, it's crazy to look back at the freight elevators being worked on by Chad McKinney, how complicated they were, how much work was going into them, and then CIG released them to instability, but then also let go of the guy who made them work simultaneously while tying them into just about every single part of the game. It's just like a really bad idea, and it's not gone well.
That is a completely different discussion that I don't want to get too into, because people already get mad at me for talking, being mad at CIG for things. So, but it is a I think it is kind of indication of the sort of things that CIG needs to fix. It goes back to that. They need that baseline. There needs to be certain things that always work, no matter what. When a player logs in, these are the things that have to work in order to even begin to fix some of the problems with the game. And those are things like elevators, cargo elevators, the transit system, the ships need to be able to fly and function. And things like disconnects and star map, disconnects, quantum jumping, those sorts of issues. Because I personally, those are the biggest issues that I have in the game. If those issues were magically fixed overnight, there are other issues with Star Citizen when it comes to content and improving the content and changing the content. And I've talked a lot about like sandbox versus the balance of sandbox and a theme park that CIG needs to strike. But those conversations can't even begin to start until they fix these basic issues, which are what most people are complaining about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what Benoit was trying to get at. Well, not Benoit, actually. That was, I think he said it during his Star Citizen Live, but when they put out the roadmap roundup, they said like they want to focus on that first hour and making sure those things work. And I think almost everybody is just sitting back being like, why hasn't that been the priority? Why hasn't
Especially since 4.0.
Yeah, since 4.0, I think that was like, it's really strange that I thought that was the goal, Okay, we've got server meshing in. Now let's set a baseline for where people understand the game is and test things in the tech preview. And we've just seen that not happen over the last year.
Yeah, it's a weird issue. And I think a lot of people point to Squadron as a culprit. And I think that has to do with it. But I also think that CIG is kind of like the dog that caught the car, where they got 4.0 done. And so they got server meshing in. And it's like,
Now we have to make a game.
It's improved. It's improved performance, and we actually got the tech in. Now we actually have to do stuff. And so they're starting to look at everything else they've been ignoring while just dedicated to focusing on getting server meshing out. And they're going, oh, there's a lot broken here that we need to fix, or a lot of things we need to replace. And they just don't, as we said before, the resources. They just don't have the time or the resources to invest in all of them at once. So they have to like figure out how to fix it. And that's the problem is I'm sure at CIG, there are discussions and arguments on what should take priority. And I think what we saw this month with Benoit and with that roadmap roundup is effectively they came to the decision, these are the things we need to focus on, at least for the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And we'll see in January if they want to change their mind again.
So from what you've seen so far, have you seen, I mean, obviously the cargo problem is a pretty big one that we've acknowledged here. And we didn't keep, oh, I'm sorry. Did I mute myself again? It's so strange how there's like there's some magical key on my keyboard, and you guys who are listening to the podcast, you're getting this week in, week out. I'm sorry about that, but there's some key on my keyboard. I'm actively recording down the chapters as we go, so I have to type these in, and I think it might be the S key, but something mutes me on Discord every time. What I was gonna ask was about now I forgot what I was saying. Somebody else in the podcast probably remembers. I was kind of continuing the conversation though in where things are going right now. We are at a really weird place where 4.9 has released and kind of things are fixing themselves a little bit, or things are getting fixed a little bit. As you said, there's improvements to mining. The FPS seems to be a little bit up, but on the other side of things, cargo is not showing up in freight elevators. Still a problem. People did not get their materials carried over from 4.8 to 4.9, which is huge for crafting. And there's still desync and instability. I freaking was running some bunkers the other day, and the guys weren't even wearing clothes. They were just cowering around naked, and I had to execute them to get my credit for the mission. It felt terrible. And I don't know if somebody said that might have been because CIG meant to put the new Ninetales outfits in, but then they pulled them back to put them in 410 and didn't give them the old stuff back, so they're all just naked in game. I don't know if that's true, but it felt not very stable. So my question to you is, 4.9 seems to be making some changes, maybe a little bit of regression in other places. Do you think this is actually going to stick as a trend? Do you think Benoit has got enough behind this effort to keep this going, or are they just going to fix it for a month, drop instancing in, and then you think it's going to go back to whatever was going on in 4.7?
I think it's going to be a constant battle, but I think that there's probably enough movement because of the shame from 4.8 that they got he probably has at least until September, October. In November, it's all bets are off. It's whatever Chris wants for November because he thinks it's going to be a big, because he wants the big sale to happen. They want to have this. I guarantee you, internally, they're trying to push for their IAE to be their biggest sale ever because the last sale for DefenseCon was the biggest sale ever, period. I think it even broke the record of, it broke the previous record from last IAE.
Yep.
So, November is all bets are off. I think it's whatever this is going to make them the most money from that sale. But until then, I think Benoit probably has the mandate to continue this. But I've talked to a couple of people who I know who I showed them who are Star Citizen fans and showed them the roadmap roundup and sort of like what they were doing. And these are both people who work in tech around like more not gaming but other things. And both of them said, "Wait a second. What do you mean they didn't have these automated systems for checking or for like registering, like cataloging bugs? What were they doing before?" And because that still hasn't explained. And a lot of them said, "Yeah, this is good. It's a good change, but this is not an overnight change. This is a multi-month process to build out and get these things out there." And CIG is a tanker, not a speedboat. It takes them at least 6 months to change things internally, and then once it gets solidified inside their culture, then it remains like that until something else changes. So I think that Benoit or whoever is behind this. I'm assuming Benoit, because Benoit was the face on the SCL, and a lot of things that he said in the SCL mirrored that roadmap roundup. Whoever's in charge of this probably has enough buy-in and enough of the mandate to get this through to close to the end of the year. And I think this is going to be a permanent change? I have no clue. CIG has changed on the dime a lot. I was recently watching the infamous year of stability video with Benoit and Jared, and I was like, because someone had linked it for something else, and I'm like, this is someone from July, and then I looked at the actual like date, and I'm like, no, this is the year of stability video. Why do they sound exactly the same? And that's a problem when you're looking at two videos that are a year and a half apart from each other, and they're the same story, just slightly tweaked. It shows that like there's still a long way CIG needs to go, and they can still fuck it up. So we'll have to see. You're muted again if you're talking.
Sorry, I was completely muted this time. I do think in that video, they made a mistake of mentioning stability, because they had the plan laid out. They called it playability. They included the fact that content was going to be in there. I don't know how many times during that video they may have called it stability, but I think that completely stole the message, because clearly it wasn't a year of stability, right? Like it was a year of just keep people playing. And I think,
well, it was context. Like a lot of people forget that right after 4.0 released, it was a shit show. It was worse than, almost as bad as 3.18, but the difference between 3.18 and 4.0 was that everyone was expecting 4.0 to be a disaster, because it was such a big technological change. That video was in February. 4.0 released officially in January. So it had been a month of just constant major issues in terms of people being able to play, servers being up, or the famous death loop, where like a server would crash and be brought back, and the same thing that caused the server to crash would crash it again. So you had like a restart loop. Those problems were everywhere. And so when Benoit was talking about it, what he was talking about was, we need to improve server stability. We cannot have these problems. And I think overall, he was successful. Like, generally speaking, I don't see very many 30Ks happening outside of very specific limited issues that are usually patched out within, a patch or sometimes a hotfix. And I'm not seeing a lot of server restart loops. It's just not a conversation in the community as much as it used to be. So with the context of what he was saying was true. The problem is as we all know, Star Citizen, or just maybe gaming in general, is where context goes to die. So it was a mistake. I do think it was a mistake in the sense that he said, this is the year we focus on stability and playability, and people assumed that meant no more bugs, everything they wanted in the game's gonna be out. So, but that's an issue of just, that's an example of how CIG needs a PR team. As much as I loathe to say that they need to have suits telling them what to do, they kind of need suits telling them what to do, at least just to make them pause and go, did you think about it this way? Somebody who's professionally looking at the community and looking at the feedback of the community, and also has a seat at the big board where all the managers sit to like tell them no.
Well, they've definitely
respond to it.
They've definitely been letting less people speak on camera about definitive stuff over the last year and a half.
True.
Like they've put Benoit in the chair a lot more to answer things than just letting anybody kind of talk about it. Let's talk more about the gameplay. We've talked plenty about stability and the fixes and stuff that they're doing. Let's talk about the gameplay that's been being introduced and where it seems to be headed. First, I want to touch on the factions that are being added in. We've seen a storyline kind of developing. The Vandul smuggling storyline from Dr. Yorit in Pyro and Stanton took us to Nyx in the beginning of the year, had us fighting a new group that was kind of dealing in this illicit trade. And since then, we've been like not really following a storyline, but more so of like a growing I guess in the lore sense, it seems to be a growing sense of conflict and activity in the Nyx system that we're like actively going through chronologically with the game. Clearly, it's leading somewhere. How are you feeling about the way that they're introducing factions and linking them into missions? And like now we've got a mission giver who is kind of giving stuff that goes against it. Does it feel tangible? Can you follow it? Does it make sense? And does it feel like it's headed towards a good conclusion for the year?
Those are completely separate things. I'll try my best to answer both.
Let's start with with one then.
So, can you follow this thing? Yes, I think it's actually simplified compared to what it used to be, which is good and bad. It's simplified in that because it's simpler, it allows for more people to follow it lightly. So it doesn't require a lot of attention, which is a trend that tends to happen when games are trying to produce a lot of content and don't have a lot of resources, which meshes with everything I've known about CIG. It's simple in the sense that you have the Shattered Blade. We know they're connected to Yort because they're the people getting Yort all these Vandal tech. And effectively, it's just sort of the Vandal are attacking because the Shattered Blade keeps ambushing them and taking their tech, and the Vandal don't like that, so they keep showing up to fight the Shattered Blade, and then the People's Alliance and Intersec are getting caught in between.
The Vandal are so touchy, dude. Jeez, just let them steal it. Gosh.
Well, the Vandal culture is very honor-based in the sense that if you ambushed and raided one of their clan members, then they will come after you. Because it's like now you've insulted them. You've said that they're weak and they can't show weakness because weakness is bad. And that weakness will lead to revolution or rebellions inside the ranks. And the leader needs to show strength. So they have to. It's more one of those, like, it's the political reality of Vandal life is you attack the Vandal, they have to respond if they still have ships. They have to keep going until they're completely decimated or a new leader is chosen. And even then, the new leader still needs to show that they can kick the hell out of the people who attack them. That's why they fight amongst each other all the time. So in the grand sense, in the grand narrative of the universe, yeah, it makes sense. It works. It's easy to follow. You can easily see that like the Vandal are the Shattered Blade are stealing Vandal stuff, which is causing the Vandal to start to come into the system, and they're coming in greater and greater numbers. And the People's Alliance are trying to regulate it, but they do not have the people, and Intersec is being brought in as sort of a stopgap. But Intersec itself is part of the UEE. It's really it's basically a private military company run by the UEE government, though it's not officially. So it's sort of like it's the Blackwater, or I guess is the one not Blackwater. I think it's Blackwater, whatever that mercenary company was in the early 2000s. But totally nice. And I think that's the biggest the biggest problem CIG currently has is that there are legitimately good guys and bad guys. There is no like gray area, which is what CIG's writers have talked about for years, that they want to kind of strike a balance. Is sort of not all good people are intentionally good and not all bad people are all bad, but they just don't seem to either, again, have the resources or the ability to do so. So like they've simplified the narrative, which is fine for an alpha. Now on the other side, we've got Recco Battaglia coming in, and her missions seem to be a little bit more narrative, a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a story between her different mission type cycles.
Even these kind of like throwaway ones we're getting in 4.9.
Yeah, a lot of the throwaway ones are just, the sort of repeatable ones. But I know she has I don't think they've added them yet, have they?
No, she's got like a storyline that's coming later, but
yeah, that one is that's coming later is the ones that we're getting right now are sort of an example of what CIG called their system stories, where you have a mission giver or a location that will give you missions that will specifically focus on one system, which is separate from the main story missions that CIG wants to do. So you can think of it as in terms of like the main story of the Alpha branch is the Vandul's rise in the eastern part of the empire, which is where Nyx and Castra and Pyro and Stanton and Terra are. Because up to this point, it's always been a Western issue. It's been Saul, Davian.
Were the Vandul westernizing us, dude?
Vega. The Vandul are, because we know that one of the borders between East and West is Virgil, and Virgil fell. And so, like, one of the connecting systems to Nyx is Virgil. Virgil's sort of like the gateway to the East, as it were, or was before it fell. So, in the grand narrative of things, is the Vandul of Alpha, Star Citizen Alpha branch, is the Vandul are showing up in places they're not supposed to be, and that's causing stresses and other problems that are happening. So overall, I feel like that's probably going to go forward, and that has a lot to do with resources. They have a ton of Vandul models, ships, infantry units, probably just varying different types of units, probably different types of weapons that the Vandul will use, different behaviors. All that stuff is modeled in. They already have it. They know it works because it's in Squadron. So it's a matter of porting those over to Star Citizen and making them work, but they don't want to do it until Squadron's out. So I think that's the easiest story to tell, is sort of Vandul's interaction with the eastern part of the UAE. Overall game. But individually, we still don't really have the sort of stories that, like, last year really did well, like Dr. Yorit's story, because you could actually follow Dr. Yorit's descent into madness, as it were, as he became convinced that the only way to make humanity survive is to hybridize humanity with Vandul DNA using regen. I did an entire video on it. It's like that sort of really cool story of ASD and then Dr. Yorit is sort of doesn't exist anymore. I think it's because it requires too many resources. So
that's just sad, because I mean, it's like what you're saying with the Vandul, and going back to this idea that, like, CIG has their bad guys. Obviously, the Vandul are big bad guys. Holy crap, they're like picture perfect, made to be poster children of bad folks. But wouldn't it be nice to, like, have factions that work with the Vandul and even better? What?
Go ahead. I was going to say, don't get me started on the on what I would prefer is you being able to side with groups like the Nine Tails, Xenothreat, the Shattered Blade, because that is more of a sandbox storytelling where you allow players to suffer the consequences of deciding to join these groups, to show that, hey, it's not socially acceptable to be a space racist or to actively antagonize an entire group of entire species that is trying to wipe out humanity, or to just, randomly start killing civilians because you have some beef with Crusader for whatever reason. Like the idea that actions have consequences, which is one of the earliest sort of motivating design features of Star Citizen back in the earliest of days. I'd love to see those come back. And I don't believe that they are gone. I just think that they're hibernating until they get enough resources or enough push to actually, kind of like with the bug problems, where now finally they're moving resources over to these problems that players have been talking about for literally years to solve these issues. It'll probably take some time before they actually get the push to actually get the resources to give them the new reputation system and more focus on the sort of the sandbox elements of the story and that sort of thing. But yeah.
So you don't believe that they are changing to push people more into an on the rails format? It feels more temporary for you. Like, do you think at some point people will be able to team up with Shatterblade or the Moraine group to wreak havoc in Nyx?
Maybe if they survive Alpha. Like, I don't think Xenothreat, for instance, will survive Alpha. I think Xenothreat will become a dead group by 1.0, and there be maybe Shattered Blade or Moraine may have similar have similar effects, where like these are just sort of them playing with what they have now and giving their designers stuff to design for Star Citizen. You know, like, oh, this unique faction outfit, and this unique faction outfit, so they get better at using the resources they have available. Because if you notice, a lot of the faction armors are just other armors that have been modified. So they're just taking armor that already exists in the game, then modifying them with different bits. And the better they get at it, the faster they can make them. Like Xenothreat is the simplest version. It's a lot of it is just armor with paint on it versus the Shattered Blade, which has like bones strapped to them. And then there's I think they're the Moraine. I don't know who's in Rockbreaker, but they're getting crazy with the Rockbreaker because I think they're using Esperanto. I think they're speaking in Esperanto through a vocoder.
What's Esperanto?
So when it's a conlang, a constructed language made by people, by a bunch of Europeans, as an attempt to create a language that would be a universal language without any ties to a specific culture. So it's like got bits of Spanish and English and French and German combined together and trying to be simplified. It was made in like the 60s and 70s, but a couple of people got really into it and have continued to promote it, even though it doesn't really have a lot. It's a great language to use because it sounds vaguely in a science fiction universe, because it sounds vaguely like a language, because it is, but it's not a language that anyone has heard outside of a bunch of language nerds.
That's an awesome, dude. That is an awesome detail. And to be quite honest, it's kind of funny because it just sounds to me like you're trying to trick me into learning every language so that I can just speak this this one with all the parts.
Well, that's just, it's a theory, but I don't know Esperanto myself, but I picked up a couple of words that are said. I'm like, I think that's Esperanto. And there are other things like that you can use. Like I know a lot. They do this a lot in Japanese anime, where if they want a vaguely fantasy sounding like language, they'll use what is it called? Oh, it's a Northern Spanish language, which isn't Spanish. It's completely it's a like an isolate. It's done because the Basque they use Basque language, which is itself a completely foreign sounding language. It doesn't sound anything like any European languages because it's not. It's sort of its own little unique thing. So yeah, you could even pull out Basque if they wanted to. It would be interesting. But yeah, those are the little details that are added to Star Citizen that go, there are writers here. There are mission designers, like writers, developers, like the people working in closely with Elliot's team. I'm sure that the designers themselves who are pulling these little details out, because these are the little things you can do and put into a game without having to have some major narrative import, which actually makes the game feel different. It makes each factions unique. So, but yes, I do hope that if they do survive, that you players will be able to play with those different factions and have a limited storyline with them. But also the consequences of, if you're joining Xenothreat, you're probably not going to be welcomed in places where the UEE is. Which will limit your travel. And I think that's one of the reasons why CIG seems to be hesitant to do that now, because all it takes is somebody not paying attention and being like, well, these guys pay a lot, and then getting mad about being shot at when they get out of the jump point in Stanton and be like, what, this is some weird bug. And it's like, no, dude, you packed the wrong horse. And I think they're concerned that they don't have the established experience, the first hour of gameplay, as Benoit said, to really not just give you the systems, but also the universe you're in, so that they can understand more like, oh, there are consequences to my actions. These are the decisions. And it's something that CIG has gone back many, many years to talk about. And it makes sense. It made sense to do a lot of these reputation issues, like these negative reputation things, when there were 100 systems. It's a lot harder to do it with 5 systems, because having the wrong decision now locks you out of, 3/5 of the entire game experience. That's a hell of a reduction in gameplay that needs to be handled properly by CIG.
I really hate to connect dots that maybe aren't there, but that does sound like another problem that could be solved by Starchitect and their ability to put a bunch of missions at each point of interest on these planets. You know, instead of getting locked out of 2 planets and losing all of the content in the system, the other 2 planets in the system still give you like 40 hours worth of missions.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think I think it's connected in the sense that, as Jared likes to say, if we've talked about it, they've talked about it. And I guarantee you they know that. That's probably one of the reasons why Starchitect is there. Is I think even when they mentioned Starchitect, is they wanted to increase the volume of content. And that's what Starchitect is for, is to increase the volume in a local area, so they don't have to travel from Hurston to Crusader to do a mission, because you can just do missions around Hurston and experience everything around Hurston.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Continuing on that same line of conversation about like the factions that are coming in and stuff. How about this is a little bit premature since we're just now getting our first new version of a mission giver coming in. I'm assuming though you've seen kind of the leaks about what her mission will look like. And you've gotten some idea of where they're headed with mocap and voice acting and just the general way they're dropping people into the game, like these people who are talking to us over camera, for instance, or Wicklow, the ever so loved Wicklow. Does it feel like the characters and stories coming into this game are interesting from an MMO aspect to you, or even from a looter shooter aspect? I know this is not the same, but a lot of people would play it similarly, where they might go into Destiny, find a mission giver, take the stuff that mission giver wants, and then go out and run some missions with friends and bring it back. Do you feel like they're building up something that interests the people who are looking for that kind of experience?
I think so. I think there is a learning curve they're going to have to run through. There's a learning process they're going to have to go through. And because no 2 games are the same. And they're trying to, I think with what we're seeing with Reco is a experiment to see if what they originally pitched as mission givers would still work. Because for those who don't know, we have known for years, because of the leak in 2016, that every one of the mission givers that they had planned by 2016 not only had mocap, but it had mission dialogue. Full-blown 1 to, or I think it was like 3 to 7 missions per mission giver in just Stanton. And there were like 8 mission givers at that time. With full storylines that would tie in with each other. So one mission giver would send you to another mission giver, and so on and so forth. And in that leak, they had all of the audio was for those mission givers was leaked. So for a while, the wiki actually had recorded all of the path of what the mission givers were supposed to do, because we knew what missions were. And so the way that it's being designed right now with Reco is that old system, which is do a main mission with her first to get her reputation up. Then the random missions we're doing now, she'll give you those missions to work on her reputation. And then you get chapter 2 of her main story mission. And then you have to do, that unlocks new missions, which are random, or you can do the old missions, but you have to keep your reputation up. Then you get to chapter 3. And the reputations were sort of stages upon which she would trust you, give you more missions, and also give you more things. Like right now, Recapitalia, I think you get a ship at the end of her rep grind. The goal is that there is going to be signposts with missions you actually have to do, which are unique to her, in order to jump up those step ladders. And I have never seen a game do something like this. Usually it's go do this mission for me and then come back and we'll do another mission. There's usually not like narrative and then grind missions and then narrative and then grind missions. I've seen that before with some like single player games, but you don't really usually see that with multiplayer games. At least I haven't.
Really, in MMOs? No?
Well, usually with MMOs, it's all grind. It's like the missions themselves are the grind to get to the end point. But it's like each mission is part of a story point along the line. So there might be a chain of like 12 missions or 12 quests, and then you reach those 12 quests, you're done. And there are some like things you can do where those would be like bounty boards or random jobs you can pick up, which were not connected to the mission giver or lightly connected to the mission giver. Not a combination of the two, where like you have a quest and then you have random grind jobs and then a quest and then random grind jobs. Maybe that was happening in Destiny. It's been a while since I played Destiny, so I don't remember. I remember Destiny being effectively just like, go do this mission, and it was usually a long stuff.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that games don't give rewards for completing mission chains. What I was saying is the style of having mission grind. I don't think I've seen that attempted. So that's an interesting change to the formula, because they can add as much grind as they want to between the two signposts of the main missions to increase the difficulty or reduce them to decrease the difficulty. It allows them for easy, I won't say in the future. As in terms of like, will it work? I think it will, but it really depends on how that functions in terms of a long-term thing. Because the genius thing about it is that they can just keep adding missions at the end. There's only 3 missions for Recco right now, but they could have infinite. They just have to come up with new ideas and then just add them in there, as long as there's not like a definitive endpoint.
It would be interesting to see how reputation adds into that. I also remember back when we used to run missions for the givers, like Tisha, you would actually go and run that mission, and then the game itself or another mission giver would create an opposing criminal-focused mission to kind of counteract what you were doing. I think that would be like a system that could reliably do that for at least certain types of conflicts in certain areas. Would be really, really cool for people who want to pursue the unlawful type of stuff, but are maybe not sure how to do that in a sandbox environment.
Yeah, allowing for a baby's first criminal gameplay loop to exist.
And hold you into crime.
Yeah.
Let's see. I had another. I just completely lost my flow there. So 4.10 is actually introducing instancing, since we're still talking about kind of how the game is actively changing right now. I do want to touch on instancing a little bit. It's going to be in Evocati probably by the time this goes live. Maybe not. And it's a very debated topic. From your perspective, do you think that it's going to have a major change on the game immediately? Or do you think they're still not sure exactly how they're going to apply it?
I think people have overblown instancing. I think a lot of folks take a look at instancing and then slippery slope themselves into panic attacks. Instancing is there for the theme parks. It's there for the set things that CIG has created, like the rock breakers, the TSGs, the Siege of Orsons. Not really for like the Hathors. It's there for the big tent pole or the ASD facilities, that kind of thing. It's there to lock people out so that CIG can balance the experiences to the party size that they want. That way they can control the outcome as well as improve performance. So I don't think this is going to be one of those things that's a game changer. I do think it will improve the problems that we talked about at the beginning, those fundamental issues that are the peaks and valleys that are causing peaks and valleys of Star Citizen. It'll probably help smooth out a little bit more, but I don't see it as this sort of, oh no, now everything's going to be instanced and there's not going to be PvP. It's like that's A, too much work on CIG's part, and B, doesn't seem to be the direction they want to go.
There is definitely a clear fear that people think this is headed back towards the original idea of Star Citizen, which, funny enough, people might not know, was a completely instanced 100% segmented game. It was not meant to be this large scale, everybody is flying through the same spaces, running into each other kind of thing. And I agree with you. I don't think we're ever going to go back to that. I think the idea of flying out into space in this game will always be flying out into space. And You're not going to be jumping into another instance before you go to a planet. But there's also the risk that they do these theme parks and they get all these conflicts into instance locations, and then the game is kind of lacking of more just sort of natural central places for people to create conflict and run into. I think the biggest example anybody would point to would be one that you covered quite extensively. The Jumptown Wars was probably the best example of Star Citizen ever. And folks are still waiting for that to kind of naturally come back. And I think worried that instancing is another hit towards the possibilities of that.
I don't think that's going to be a problem. I really don't think that instancing will kill the sandbox. I do think that CIG does need to focus on the sandbox because they've been focusing heavily on the theme park. But I don't think that the instancing itself is being used specifically to strip the sandbox elements away. I'd love to see another Jump Town, but that Jump Town needs a bunch of systems like dynamic economy. It needs things like reputation systems. It needs incentives, things for you to do that CIG just doesn't have yet. They keep trying to do it with artificial Jump Town events like they've done in the past, but it just doesn't really work unless it's random. Unless it's by chance, by accident, like the original Jumptown was, where everyone discovers it, and by the time everyone discovers it, it's like a gold rush, and then because it's discovered, it peters out and then disappears and then shows up somewhere else. So that dynamic emergent gameplay which is like part and parcel with Sandbox, requires the sandbox to exist, and CIG still hasn't built the sandbox. They don't have the dynamic economy system. They don't have the reputation systems. They don't have the stuff that they need in order to allow for that emergent gameplay to happen, which is why they're focusing on theme park and instancing, because it allows them to continue to do that stuff because they already have the tools and technology and know how to do that. But I don't think it's the end of the sandbox. I just think that CIG definitely does need to start focusing on that sandbox as they have with crafting. It's just a matter of expanding out from that.
Yeah, the crafting, the mining, and the the crafting, the mining, and what
base
else?
Building and refining and salvaging. All those sorts of things.
Yeah, just slipped my head. I had an example of something that was being worked on, but the things that they've been adding in these theme parks, do you feel like they do meet the need? Are they actually entertaining and doing what you would expect from a theme park? Because I mean, they should at least be doing that well if that's what they're focusing on.
Yeah, it's doing fine when they work.
Cool.
The problem with theme parks events is that they can be really fun. Going on a roller coaster is fun. You can go on that same roller coaster 4 times in one day, still fun. I've been down. I used to when I lived in California when I was younger. Various different groups I was part of would go down to LA to Disneyland before all of the Disneyland stuff became extremely expensive. And we'd go down with these groups because we'd get a group pass and go down there. I remember going down there, twice a year with the various groups. I would still go on Splash Mountain. I think it's Splash Mountain, the log ride they had there. I'd go on that as much as like sometimes 4 or 5 times a day when we do go there for 2 days. Still enjoyed it, even though I knew what was going on. That's the theme park. It's like, what you're going to experience, and as long as it's fun, it's fun. The problem is that Splash Mountain can crash in the sense that it can stop working. If it stops working, nobody can use it. And if no one can use it, then you have to wait till the techs come in and
Splash
fix
Mountain,
it.
30K.
Yeah. When Splash Mountain 30K, so you got a problem. But that's the problem with theme parks, is that they can get boring if you do them too much. So you have to have a variety, and then you also have to maintain them. And CIG hasn't been maintaining. So they're fine in terms of design. It's just the maintenance. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, one of the most popular things that is sort of a sandbox, but still a theme park-esque thing, is the contested zones And CIG's the loot rooms in those contested zones is still broken. It's been broken for 4 patches, and they still haven't fixed it because it's just not a priority, because they've got to fix, they've been working on Lazarus and fixing some of the priorities of fixing like the behavior of the various Valakar. They've been focusing on TSG fixes. They've been focusing on trying to get the Vanduul smuggler missions, freight elevators to work. And it's these sorts of like individual issues that pop up that force them to firefight rather than to plan. And I've always been of the opinion that sandboxes are easier to maintain because once you've built the systems, they're there, and it allows the players to make the fun. You can still build theme park rides out of those sandbox elements, but it becomes easier to do. So.
Well, I hope they make it work, because the going to these theme park locations and then not running through them for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and them not working has been painful for people.
Yes.
And it's also built this reputation with the current state of the game that, yeah, we're getting content, we're getting this stuff that's dropped in, and it's fun to do, and new players are going to get entertainment out of it, but people are walking away saying, hey, as soon as it's 2 patches old, it's broken, and I'm not really interested anymore. So I do think like this is a great thing to do, because there are too many systems in Star Citizen that don't allow players to easily take agency into their own hands and have some fun with a sandbox. So yeah, theme parks are good for players who are trying to learn what this game is about. But if they're not, if they're not broken, or I mean, if they are broken, then that's just, it's like having the free fly during 4.8. It's doing more harm than good. I can't believe they pushed that one to go through during freaking DefenseCon. That was a bad idea.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of questions about CIG's planning and CIG's, I think, over-optimistic view of themselves without a critical eye. That has more to do with a lot of other things that CIG has to address.
Yeah.
Which again comes back to the conversation that Benoit was having with Jared and the roadmap roundup that they did shortly after, where it's like they seem to acknowledge that there are problems and they're trying to fix them. It's just I don't want to. I've been here before, man. I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired. It's been 14 years. I'm getting tired of this.
I don't want to dig holes no more, Grandpa. And Chris Roberts comes out of nowhere. Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, I want to get off Mr. Bones' wild ride. I want to get off Mr. Roberts' wild ride.
Let's talk about the current goings-on of the game. We're at this interesting time in Star Citizen during the year where it's starting to emerge from its slumber. It goes through this kind of summer hibernation every year where things collapse. The game is dying. Everyone gets outside and actually touches grass. Thank God. Good. Like, keep doing it, guys. It's good. It feels good out there. But in that period of time, because of the struggle that was 4.8 and the delays out of 4.9 maybe, and like them just trying to get the game in order, they have delayed the Foundation Festival, it seems. Usually it's in the first half of July. This year it is starting on, I think, the 29th of July, and actually kicking off at the same, no, I think not the 29th, I think it's the 20, I don't know. But it's kicking off at the end of the month at the same time as the Ship Showdown. So this is different from normal years. Why do you think they're doing it like this?
Delay. I think they originally were planning on having Foundation Festival to happen shortly after 4.9 released. And 4.9 was supposed to release earlier. Or it was supposed to be like the beginning of July, like it usually is. I think it just 4.8 happened.
Yeah.
4.8 happened and it threw all of their schedules off because they were like, oh no, back to fighting fires, because they weren't anticipating the problems. So
you think I think actually they've still insinuated they're doing a free fly for it.
I do find it weird that they're doing a Twitch drop campaign for Foundation Festival.
That's an interesting, it's not even just a Twitch drop campaign. They're also throwing in an extra benefit where if people subscribe to somebody who's streaming Star Citizen, they get something as well. And that That comes off as very telling to me. What's your read on this?
Testing. It's them testing out the features. That's something that's apparently been available for other people who've used it in the past. Other game companies have. So it's just one of those tools that Twitch gives CIG in their toolbox.
I see.
And I'm guessing it's just CIG using it. The only other major tool that I can think of is, other than various timed, where it's like, you watch for 4 hours, you get this, 6 hours, you get this, 8 hours, you get that, is giving specific content creators giving only those specific content creators the drops, which I think they'll probably do for Squadron 42. Well, they'll gather a team with a PR group, which will be a mixture of Star Citizen creators and non-Star Citizen creators to practice that. But before they get Squadron 2 out, they need more practice. They've only done 2 Twitch drops, so a Foundation Festival makes sense. It is an event that is supposed to be focused around new players coming in and playing the game, so a Twitch drop makes sense to get the word out for people to be like, hey, not only can you watch, but if you subscribe to these folks, then you get more. So I think in theory, it could get more people to stream Star Citizen, because not only do you get higher view counts, because the Twitch drops will just artificially jack up everyone's view numbers, but it also give more incentive for people to pay that subscription so they can get a cool little trinket, especially for people who are ultimate collectors who don't have it. So that's fair. Yeah, I just think it's a move on CIG's part to test all the tools they have with a logical location and time. But I also don't think that it was planned. Like, this wasn't something they were like, oh yeah, we're going to do this like a week ago, and they just contacted April, May of this year.
You just dropped out for a second there for some reason.
Oh, I was just saying, I guarantee you something that they probably talked with Twitch in like April or May to set up, rather than this wasn't a decision they made like yesterday or last week.
Yeah. No, that's it's probably a planned thing for sure.
And so we have the obligations. They want to keep relations with Twitch and Amazon. So it's like, okay, well, we'll make it work, is what they're at. So
can I share some of the other angle? I think I do agree. Sure. I think this is obviously, it helps you keep up the regularness of it. I find this one a little bit weird because I think when was the first Twitch drop they did? That was December, right?
December. Yeah, it was 4.0, I think. Or not 4.0.
No, it was 4.6.
No, it was November. It was November.
Was it during IAE?
Yeah, it was just last IAE.
Okay. So that makes sense. IAE and the Defense Con makes sense because those are like big moments. And in my mind, that was them trying to draw attention to times when they thought was like a big deal for the game, a chance to bring on people for new sales, to get folks activating their accounts, and most importantly, getting the people who weren't really paying attention to come back and pay attention and see what's new, what's there. Mm-hmm. From that perspective, this feels like a really weird time to do Twitch drops for me, because the game is not bounced back, right? Cargo's not even working correctly. We don't know where it will be next week. But it's also not like a big sales time. It's like a focused on bringing in new players, but then instead of doing the new player focused stuff, they're doing drops for content creators, which feels like then they're trying to get people to pay attention to what's going on in the game rather than doing the foundation part, like the guide system teaching part. So it feels like it's almost co-opting Foundation Festival to be more of an event. And I'm assuming they'll have some kind of sale going on at the same time.
I'm sure. It'll probably be a discounted starter pack.
Yeah.
With some extra goodies.
And I feel like this is not a good move. It seems like the wrong move, in my opinion. You're kind of shucking this idea of the community coming together to bring new people into the game for what feels like a promotion for streamers, especially the subscribe to a streamer and get an extra thing. It's like, it's almost like CIG is doing this to incentivize the streamers to start covering Star Citizen more because they haven't been over the last month or two.
It definitely feels like that. I will admit that. It definitely feels like CIG is trying to is trying to, you know, reach out and go, hey, you're off playing other games. We're still here. Come back. Come back. We've got viewers now. We've got more viewers, and now they'll subscribe to you, so they'll give you money. You know, I can see that, but I also, from a cynical perspective, but I also from knowing how these work in other games, I can see, and knowing how CIG has worked in the past, it feels a lot more, I'm not going to say innocent, but a lot more, look at these cool toys. Let's use them to figure out how they work. Because remember, last time they did it, they had massive delays between earning your armor and then seeing it on the store.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure they also want to like test it out to see like, hey, does this change at all? Because like, you know, there's plenty of games that will do Twitch drops 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
As a way of promoting. It's a cheap way of getting promotions.
Oh yeah,
out there to
definitely.
get people in there.
It just feels like the kind of thing you do after you've done a lot of updates, because you know people want to come back. Yeah.
And
we're just not there.
It also doesn't make any sense to have like what they're giving, which is like a skin for ATLS. Like, okay, why not a skin for a starter ship, or, you know, armor for a starter player or something, you know?
Yeah, like an Aurora Mark II skin would be great.
Like they did with the they did with the in the past with the Foundation Festival, where like if you were doing a guide and you get a special like armor or helmet or hat or something like that. There should be multiple things going on at once. If that was the goal, if the goal is community coming together, let's celebrate the community. And there should be more things around the community itself rather than just Twitch. But I also think that as we discussed earlier, I think that this Foundation Festival is sort of just seen as a, oh God, kind of like how they said they're going to bring back Xenothreat, and then they delayed Xenothreat, and they just kind of just said, screw it, here you go.
Just
and
trickled it out.
Kicked it on us. As sort of a, we promised to do it, we did it, deal with it, and it's only going to be there for 15 days. We're done. And then, you know, everyone complained about it as how lackluster it felt, because it was lackluster. They just dropped it because they had an obligation to do so, instead of, you know, because they needed something to do while everyone was out on vacation and, you know, with their families and such.
Yeah, it feels like CIG is like, they're the owner of like a pretty nice venue in town. And for the first half of the year, they were getting ready for the big party. And then the big party came, and like everybody showed up. It was a huge success, just absolute chaos. But then also because it was absolute chaos, everybody kind of left with being a little bit like, oh, that was too much. I need a break. And then at the same time, CIG's waking up the next morning with their massive hangar. We're just kind of like canceling stuff. It's like inviting their friend over for breakfast. Yeah, I got a couch you can lay on here, sure, whatever. Like this whole summer has just been like the extra bits of, we're keeping things together while we recover from the big party. Because you're right, like Xenothreat came and just went. The Foundation Festival is just kind of like casually delayed, coming at the same time as Ship Showdown. The stuff's getting delayed out of 4.9. And it's interesting to see that.
The calling it 410 is also weird, because it's not 410. It's 49.1.
Right.
You know, but they want to call it 410 so they can be like, we're doing more patches, you know, like they did last year.
And it was all the same
branch, but they just called it something different to make people less mad, because they knew in the past that when you actually do what they did before, you have like an entire year with just the same patch. People go, but you didn't release a new patch. It's like, yes, they did. They just didn't call it a new patch. If they called it a new patch, people wouldn't have complained.
You remember, but imagine imagine if they just switched it and went like, okay, 5.0 is coming out in August. It just didn't have any explanation for it. Like, we're done with 4.9's over, we're going to 5.0, and everyone's like, okay, what's happening?
Nothing.
Instancing?
Nothing. Yeah, instancing. That's our big thing now. I don't think they'd pull, like, I'm not that cynical to think that they do that. I think
No,
CIG
no,
is
no,
going to
no.
stick with 1.0, but
it's just funny because I see a lot of conversation coming out about like, oh, is 5.0 coming out this year? Like, what is 5.0 going to be? I don't think CIG's even thinking about a 5.0.
No, there's no such thing as 5.0. They're thinking about beta and release. It's like we're going to go from alpha to live. I wish CIG would take some time and do a beta, spend about 6 months to a year just in a beta stage where they're like, yeah, it's basically done, but we might wipe here and there and then go to 1.0. But I think there might be a pressure on them to just keep going. Like, oh, 1.0 is ready, let's go.
And then 1.0 is beta.
Elite. That's what happened to Elite. Elite was in beta, like its final beta form with everything in the game for like a month. And then they released it. And within days of the release, a bunch of people were exploiting the system and made trillions of credits. They were just like trillionaires overnight. So like money didn't mean anything, which is why they had to start doing things like engineering and other stuff like that to try to siphon away people's credits and do something that isn't credit based. So yeah, it's a problem of not testing your system before. Now it's in a better place, but you know.
Sounds like good fun. All right, let's talk about something fun here. Let's talk about the stuff that you are excited for the final segment of this year. First of all, actually, you got to answer. Do you think that they're going to get Planet Tech V5 in? And then you can tell us what you're most excited for.
Oh, what planets are going to get V5?
No. If you think V5's coming in, it'll obviously just be Nyx 1. But then what else besides that you are looking forward to?
Oh, I mean, I'm looking forward to the entire system. Like, Nyx 2 is far more interesting than Nyx 1. Despite what people want Nyx 1 because it's beautiful and they want to build bases. And we all know that Starchitect and base building is connected to the new Genesis tech. So the Nyx 1 is going to be like the proving ground for that. But Nyx 2, in my mind, is far more interesting because it's our first Venusian planet. It's our first smog world. And we haven't had one. And for those who don't know, in the lore of Star Citizen, at least up to now, smog worlds are unterraformable. So, like, Venus isn't terraformed. So, as a result, and no one knows how to do it. Like, they've attempted many times in different places, but they always fail, including the Xi'an have tried to and failed. So, it would be this planet of incredible pressure, incredible temperatures, incredible like atmospheric problems that you would have to solve to go on. I feel like that's a lot more interesting location. Kind of like the rad storms of what were they called? Lazarus. I remember we tried to find the location and got caught into a rad storm in PTU. And I think it was a Polaris or some large ship, we actually crashed and we had to daisy chain like we were survivors from an Arctic expedition to move. And we'd have to like pick our fellows up that would overdose. We'd find random vehicles that people had attempted to drive in and we'd be able to use those as shelter for a moment and then go out to be able to like eat and drink and like cool down a little bit. And eventually we got rescued by a friend, another member of the group who was able to like get a little closer. And that whole experience was amazing when I had that. And I'm like, Nyx 2, like that could be Nyx 2. It's just like you just randomly hit pockets where your ship is just gonna die, and now you have to survive on Nyx 2 and you can get rescued, stuff like that. So, I'm interested in that. Do I think it's gonna come this year? Yes, I actually do think that Nyx 2 and Nyx 3 will come this year.
Really? And
I think I said yes. Because I think that Nyx 2 and Nyx 3 will probably be added towards the end. Nyx 3 is easy. It's just Pyro 5 or Pyro 4, whichever one's the gas giant. Crusader, it's the same thing. It's just an ice giant. So it's just going to be cold.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
But it's going to use the same technology. So it's not really as interactive as Nyx 2 will be. And Nyx 2 I think will be the hardest one to do, but they already kind of have that technology. So it's just a matter of, and they don't have to make it pretty because it's got to be kind of disgusting. So
overall, what do you think there was? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, what do you think the response would be if they dropped Nyx 1, Nyx 2, and Nyx 3 in, but only Nyx 1 had like locations and things to do?
If they had all three and only Nix 1 and Nix 2 had places to go.
Only Nix 1, like because they keep talking about Nix 1 getting Star Architect and stuff. What if we get Nix 2 and there are just like no missions, no points of interest and stuff like that?
I think it'll be fine at first. I mean, there'll probably be if they can do Star Architect, because it's generated, right? It's randomly generated. So if they can do Nix 1, then I think they can do with Star Architect. I think they can do at least some stuff with Nix 2. But I also don't think that Nix 2 will come in until after Nix 1's done. Like they'll do Nix 1 in, my guess is September or November. Probably more September, and then November or December will be the like rest of the system.
Okay.
In place.
All right. I hope it goes that way, dude, because I'm sitting here thinking they're going to try and just drop whatever they have in November and then hope it goes well.
Well, we know that, like, for instance, they're shooting for suit lockers to work in 411 in September. Star Architect is looking at like it's September. And so that means Genesis would have to be in September. And once you have the system in, Nix 1 is the hardest one to do. The Nix 2 wouldn't be that difficult to do. I do think that we might see a tech preview of Castro at the end of the year, just so Chris can be like, technically, we got 3 systems now, or 4 systems now. I said at the very beginning of the year on this podcast that you and I disagree that Castro's going to be in the game, be put in the game, but because you and I both agree with the same problem, which is they still have so much things to fill out with Nix. They haven't done so, and so they have to focus on Nix. And I'm like, of course they need. That's exactly what they need to do, which is why they'll do Castra so that they can just do new shiny again. But now, with looking at how much time we have left, it's clear that we probably won't see it. But we may see it in a sort of a, hey, here you go kind of way.
Watch them just show us like the jump point or something and being like, it's there. It's there. You just haven't discovered the technology to get through it.
The Castle Sand Castle. That's what we'll get. Instead
can
of
I put
the
that down?
Playground.
Can I put that down as your prediction, by the way, for this episode?
Oh, yeah, I have to do a prediction for this episode.
You got to.
No, so no, I'm not going to put the Castra in there because I've been that's one of those that was like, CIG will be ambitious about it. My prediction that I can almost guarantee will happen is we will get some form of refining in testing before the end of the year. Maybe not released, but testing.
All right. Can I tell you what your previous prediction was?
Sure.
All right. This one's from June. Actually, I can go all the way back to your April ones too if you're interested. You want to relive it all?
I'm sure I'm pretty wrong on all of them.
The best hits. The April prediction was the Invictus Week Zeus Titan suit being released.
Which I was wrong about, yeah.
And the Origin 200i incoming.
Okay, sort of right.
Sort of,
it was Origin.
Yeah, the M80.
But it was the M80.
Not bad.
So I was barking in the right direction. I still think the 200i is on the table, especially now that they have Origin in there.
And then I also have Fast Terrapin written down. I don't know. I don't know if that's what you thought the 200i was going to be, or if I just.
Yeah, that's what I thought the 200i was going to be. It was like a Fast Terrapin.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like an observation ship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the 200i is going to be on the table once they actually have scanning in the game. And that was one of the reasons why I said the 200i is because like there's been a lot of indications that scanning is coming in soon. And now recently it's like, nope. Still, nope. No, we have no indication. We're not going to tell you when scanning's coming in.
But I mean, it's like kind of indication because they are updating scanning.
They've been updating scanning this entire year. Like every patch has had some changes to scanning, but they haven't ever, even in the monthly report, it's been like, the new scanning update is going well. Like I haven't seen shit for
like,
months.
Is it actually happening? Yeah, dude, that's like hacking. They mentioned hacking in 1 monthly report this year, and they were like, it's going into testing for implementation. And I'm like, okay, well, what has happened since then to it?
I have a feeling it's Chris. I feel like Chris is getting a hold of it and being like, no. To be fair, I think the hacking initially Chris approved of, and then people saw the preview of it. And Chris was so visceral with the response of how we all hated it that he's like, okay, maybe we should rethink hacking. For those who don't know, it was Pac-Man. The original hacking minigame was playing a game of Pac-Man. Just reskinned.
Oops, don't look at that. I have the literal, for anybody who is currently watching, actually not even on the normal podcast will you guys be able to see this, but on the live stream, if you are here, I can show you exactly what this looked like. It would basically be a little terminal you plugged into a computer, and then it would pop up like this, sort of exactly like you said, like a Pac-Man look. It was kind of like Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, and you just have to move across this like almost like digital arena in a way, like a little maze, to connect one circuit to another with little like problems in between. And it never made it past the concept or previous stage, but yeah, they talked about it quite a bit in monthly reports and stuff, and then it just disappeared, and they changed it to a format of like injecting code.
Yeah, it's changed the format a couple of times, and I think a lot of folks were rightfully critiquing it, myself included, that it just felt too simple. I remember I made the suggestion is like, you're ripping off Cyberpunk everywhere else. Just do cyber decks. Cyber decks are cool. Everyone loves cyber decks. You just have different programs for different solutions. You just color code them. Like this red cyber deck deals with this red cyber deck. This red problem, and so on and so forth. As long as you just did, they weren't doing it wrong by simplifying it. The problem was the like drawing comparisons to every other hacking minigame that exists, which nobody likes. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes hacking minigames in video games. They all think that they're either too simplistic, too hard, or just too weird.
I did have fun with BioShock, not gonna lie, which I think was kind of what they were doing here, just drawing a path basically. BioShock like relied on the idea that water was flooding the circuit, which was quite fitting. And I like how Star Wars Outlaws did theirs. Theirs is pattern recognition. So you get a haptic feedback, you get something visual, and you get a sound like beat that you can listen to, and then you just have to hit the beat. I like it. It's
I never got to that in Star Wars Outlaws. Oh, I think I do remember doing that in Star Wars Outlaws. Once you get a hold of it, it's pretty good. But that's also like a game that's about like
breaking into places,
the right beats.
Yeah,
and we'll see how it works with hacking. But yeah, that's one of those problems where it's just like it's becoming harder and harder to judge CIG, because in the past they were at least consistent. Now they're becoming more erratic, which is one of the problems that I think it's being illustrated by these sorts of swinging priorities that we've seen. Is that in the past, like you and I could have taken a look at the monthly report and going, well, they're working on this. And usually when they work on this, we'll at least have an announcement of something within 6 months of this on a monthly report. And then as they start talking about it more, you can go, okay, generally speaking, they're working on it. More people are talking about it. But as you said, they're clamping down on people talking. So there's less forward facing from the developers. They're the only avenue of getting any kind of new information is just monthly reports, because Inside Star Citizen is just patch reports. And,
don't get me started on Inside Star Citizen.
And Star Citizen Live sometimes happens, but they rarely do confirmations on Star Citizen Live, other than like whatever the gameplay is, whatever the team is that's focusing on stuff. And that's usually like more than 6 months out. Though sometimes like the super heavy suit was 6 months from that. But that's the problem, is that because we have less and less communication avenues, it becomes harder and harder to figure out what CIG is doing, which makes it worse in terms of perspective from players who are like, everything is broken. What are you fixing, CIG? And CIG is going, buy a new ship. And it's like, okay, so fuck you. That's sort of the visceral response to that experience, to it feels like you're being sold to rather than being talked to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's something that's been shifting slowly over time, and I'm not sure how much people have been catching on to my own changing of the way that I'm covering it, but I was always of the mindset that once server meshing hit, we reached this point where we're no longer in a car flying down a hill without brakes. Like, I saw that as the point at which they could take a step back and say, we have reached a technical milestone. Now we need to consider the best way forward to create this game while people are playing it. And like, their marketing shifted to reflect that so strongly with the trailers, with the way that they were scheduling free flies, starting Twitch drops. Like, all these things told us that they had kind of reconsidered the idea of Star Citizen and wanted to move forward with that, but the development hasn't matched it. So now we're at this point where, like you're saying, we don't have as much visibility. We sit here going, what's coming next, CIG? Part of understanding this game is understanding what to expect, what to look forward to, what are you guys actively working on that we should be getting ready to test. And that just does not happen as much. And I've tried to shift my own way of covering the game to match that. I know reputations take a while to change as well, but I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people are at a state where they recognize that CIG is not so much here to share the development of a game anymore as they are just to like fund it and try to get it done. And the former is what kept a lot of people involved. And I think that's part of why people are taking a step back.
Yeah, no, it's for the longest time you'd hear people say Star Citizen isn't an open development, and you'd scoff at them because it's like, some dude could wake up on a Saturday morning, and often did, and would just start posting about what they were working on because they just finished a big coding thing, and they're like, let's talk about it because I want to talk about it because I just spent 6 months of my life working on this damn thing. I want people to know what it's like. And that was great. It was awesome. You could get so much information from that, and sometimes it was too much information. It was just this fire hose of information that was coming out from them. And over time, it's trickled down to the point where it feels less and less like a cooperative open development and more like a traditional corporate experience, like an experience you would have with an EA or a Ubisoft or a Microsoft or a Sony, where they're talking at you rather than with you. I think that's really what soured a lot of folks. There's a lot of other things that are in there, but that doesn't help the problems that they already are experiencing, especially when you're in the summer, and CIG has never met a summer they didn't want to waste. That is what's the old joke about hot girl summer? Like hot mess summer, I guess would be for Star Citizen. Every summer is hot mess summer with Star Citizen. Last year was the exception that proved the rule that CIG has no idea what to do when half the developers decide to take vacation because it's June, it's after Invictus, the lack of communication, the lack of engagement, the corporatization of everything, where the only time they want to talk to us is when they want to sell something. It feels abusive at times, even if it's just CIG's doing what they can to try to fix it. So, yeah, I understand why people are more negative about it, and why it's not necessarily like the end of the world, but it is definitely something that's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to start treating CIG like Bethesda or like CD Projekt Red, where it's like,
oh, I mean,
they're
I
not
wish.
gonna tell you anything.
I mean, if they had the track record of CG Projekt Red, I wouldn't need to be told anything. I just trust that they're gonna put something interesting out there. But yeah, I get what you mean communication-wise. Yeah.
Like CD Projekt Red isn't gonna tell shit until Cyberpunk 2 comes out, or Witcher, was it 4 comes out? You have to go to like a press event, and you'll have to be like a high-level member, or you have to be best friends with the like mission designer to get any kind of information out of CD Projekt Red. Or you have to be with Bethesda, you have to be Asha Sharma, like taking a SWAT battering ram and beating down the front door of Todd's office and being like, get to work.
You have to personally hold Todd down and say, you need to talk about your stuff.
Yeah, you need to stand behind Todd as he's typing out a blog post with a gun pointed to the back of his head and be like, do your job.
They'll be like, I told you, it's 16 times the detail. Come on. What else is there?
And unfortunately, none of us have that access. So with Star Citizen, so it can get frustrating. It can get frustrating. So if you're wondering why a lot of content creators feel more negative, it's because a lot of our easy access to information has basically disappeared and has been replaced with, in some cases, really smug responses by CIG. Really like, F you and why are you being so like, we're not going to go to bar citizens anymore if this is where you act. And it's like partially
Well, I mean, people shouldn't be recording
partially,
folks.
No, but at the same time, it's like, I understand the direction why a lot of people went, well, screw you, you're not telling us anything anyways. So, and it's because CIG is finding out this is what developers deal with when they're not in the sort of the normal development space. If you have a hardcore fan base, it's like they will give them access. They'll do their best to try to get everything out of you.
Yeah, and we hardcore.
And it's a problem. It's that shift. That shift from open development to standard corporate development.
Yeah,
that is causing issues.
And not to, I just want to clarify because I can already see the comments coming. Historian is not saying that CIG is giving these responses to content creators privately. He's talking about the same stuff everybody is seeing, which is less inside Star Citizens, less Star Citizen lives, not as much. I think they've been like they've done. Some of the devs have been good at being on Spectrum and answering stuff, but in general, just like less information across the board, which, you know, is an entitlement that people feel they have, partially because CIG said that they're going to take $20 a month subscriptions for years and say that those were going towards the production of shows that shared what was going on with development, and those shows have only been disappearing and becoming less and less over years. That's one side of it. The other side is just that, like, when you have a game that's broken and not fully featured, the excitement of that is seeing what full features are coming next. That's why games that are in development oftentimes can die, because if you don't have something that's playable for people to look forward to, they're not going to keep being interested. That's why a lot of Kickstarters die. That's why Ashes of Creation was dying. And it is just a matter of they had a norm for like, I want to say 9 to 10 years, they were doing things pretty much the same way in terms of sharing information. And since 2025, that's really disappeared. And not just content creators. I think that's just affected everyone across the board.
Well, the content creator perspective is like, there used to be so much information that you required a content creator to really comb through the information, pull the information out to talk about it. You know, you needed a Space Tomato, you needed a Board Gamer, a Salty Mike to do like a weekly recap of the information, because it's just like there's so much from so many different angles that it's important to discuss it. And CIG has basically stopped that. They turned that hose off, and they turned it off slowly over the course of 2 years. And that problem with content creators, and the reason why you'll see content creators step away or stop covering Star Citizen or get more negative about Star Citizen, is the same reason why people are getting mad about not being able to get talked to the way they've been talked to in the past by CIG. It's just sort of a like a rock hitting the puddle, hitting a puddle and causing a wave to pump function to pull out. A butterfly flaps its wings and a tornado happens in China.
Yeah, like
it's a butterfly effect. It's just, once you have that cascading effect, it'll happen. It'll hit a lot more people than you realize. And trying to tie this back to the conversation about this year is that that's made this year worse. I think it's made this year worse overall for the community, where even people who in the past I think would have stood up for CIG and be like, wait, like, come on, calm down. Like, they talk with us. This is what they've said in the past. I think even people who are usually ardent defenders of CIG would be like, yeah, like, they deserve this one for like, there's nothing I can say. So,
yeah.
Again, it's been 14 years. I'm tired. I'm just tired. I don't like this, Grandpa.
Bring back Harambe. Man. Your other predictions, though, I didn't get to go through them. Your June predictions, you said instancing will be in, Nix 1 in 4.10, and possibly the entire system, and item recovery 1.0, and another refining or refueling ship by end of year.
Yeah, I think I'd stick with all of those. The 410 thing was obviously when 410 was September, so before CIG changed the rules.
Okay, so I'll
that,
change that one for you to next one in September. We'll give you a little cheat code there. You still thinking item recovery 1.0 and another refining or refueling ship?
I think I think they'll do some sort of like mini or medium refining refueling ship, because they'll have hopefully the Expanse, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Or they may have something else, because
it's
still one of those big things that's coming out with the Galaxy. Since the Galaxy's definitely coming out in November, it's got to be something by November.
Well, it makes sense with your new refining and testing by end of year prediction. So we'll see. I've got a good amount of stuff to hold you to the coals with now. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Love the fodder. All right, man.
Thank you so much. I like being bold in my predictions.
Yeah, well, I need it, dude.
Even if I'm wrong, I love to be bold in my predictions.
Gotta give the people something to gnash teeth at.
I gotta give you the fodder so people down below in the comments can say how wrong I am. Please.
Exactly.
Please. Just go on in the comments about how wrong I am. I'm not trying to engagement farm or anything like that.
It's not bait at all. Well, before we go, because I haven't said it yet this podcast, and I can't go a podcast without saying it, Halo. Have you played it yet?
I played a little bit of it. I haven't played all of it because I do want to play it with you or Loken or both of you at some point. It's good. It feels like a cross between Halo 1 and Halo 2. A little bit of Halo 3. It's like a medley of all of the different Halos smashed together.
That sounds awesome.
The cutscenes feel like a fan-made remake of the original Halo game. And I don't think that's a good thing.
Oh, no.
I feel like fans would have done better job at remaking it than the devs have. It's not awful, but it feels almost uncanny valley. Like, to give you an example, the Pillar of Autumn level, when you're escaping the Pillar of Autumn, and you get into the escape pod, you remember how, like, when it may have been a glitch on my part. Remember how, like, when the escape pod launched, you would see it launch out of the tube and then go towards the Halo ring?
Yeah.
In the first game, they do not show the launch. They just show you in the ship, and then it cuts to you already having launched with a couple of other, like there's more spacescapes. You're actually seeing like fighters flying around and shooting at each other, and one of the pods gets exploded. And then it cuts to the perspective of the pod, but instead of being like on the Halo ring or in the Halo ring, it's you're approaching the Halo ring from a distance. So it's like you're a ship flying towards the ring rather than and suddenly land, like trying to land on the ring quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense. So how did the Pillar of Autumn crash there if it was on the other side of the gas giant that Halo is orbiting?
Yeah.
How did it end up crashing on Halo? Like the perspective is off. It just
because as you're crashing, so is the Autumn.
Yeah, that's like, if you remember, it's like he's taking it in manually.
Yeah.
You know, like what's going on? Oh, he's taking it manually. Like I told him not to do what Cortana said, basically says, because he intentionally is crashing it. And it's just like, it seems off, right?
Well, that's
so it's not
promising.
Bad. It's not bad. It just feels like a weaker retelling of the story, but the gameplay itself feels tight. It feels like they understand Halo. It's just the cinematics team needs more work.
That's so interesting. I think this is they went with the cinematics in-house instead of using Blur Studios for this one.
Yeah.
Because Blur does great work, and that's a bummer that they didn't carry that quality over.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, remember, they basically fired the entirety of 343 when they remade it into Halo Studios. So this is like many of their Halo Studios' first crack at cutscenes.
Well, I hope it's only positive from here.
Yeah, it also maybe changed a little bit, and maybe because it's early access, and they may still have patches that they're gonna push. That kind of
maybe,
stuff,
yeah. I think
so maybe that's a bug.
I do not have access yet, but I definitely am looking forward to playing when I do. We got to set that up. Maybe do it on stream.
Yes. Yes, I'm available all next week. So
awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this talk. This was a good check-in on what's going on with Star Citizen, what happened this year, what might happen for the rest of the year. I'm sure people will walk away from this thinking that we are either all negative or all positive. I hope that this conversation carried some nuance for those who are listening, and if there's anything you should take away from this, it is that, like always, neither of us are like full-on death on this game. Neither of us think it's going to be the best thing in the world. We're just kind of looking forward to a good space game.
Games.
Yeah.
We like space games. We want to see more space games. And I will say this. I am optimistic about the rest of this year because of what Benoit has said and because of that roadmap roundup. I feel like they're making the right corrections. And I feel like the response from the community has been positive enough that they'll continue to make these corrections going forward. The only thing I'm a little skeptical about is, will these corrections continue beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 months and go into the culture at CIG? I'm hoping they will. Hopefully it is that last sort of puzzle piece to lock into place to get this game not only a functional game that we want to play, but a game that is functional beyond the initial release of those patches.
Yeah. And something I'm betting they're watching very closely is momentum. Right now, they are currently 32.3% ahead of last year in earnings, and they got that far ahead in large part due to like March and April, but in big part due to May. I'm actually showing anybody who's watching the video live right now, you can see they are 32.3% ahead of last year. So it's going to be interesting over the next couple of months to watch this percentage and see if they start to fall behind on their momentum, gain momentum, stay the same, because that might determine whether or not they keep going with this model. If they can turn towards, quote unquote, fixing the game and still be making cash hand over fist, that's a good sign for us. If things start to slow down, they might course correct. And all of this got to be remembered, guys, that they do have private investors who are watching the health of the game, the community, what's going on. They have a put option worth £71 million that ends in September. So
they may be watching this podcast right now. Not to put pressure on you, Tomato, but you know.
Oh man, leave your comments down below if you are. We'd love to hear from you.
I got a couple £1 million pound idea, a couple £1 million idea. Please call me.
Oh man, that would be true. I hope you guys are spending your time more intelligently than watching my podcast, but if you are, appreciate it. And anybody else who has been watching, thank you so much for doing so. We do this every week, generally not live on the stream like this, but if you are a supporter, Twitch subscriber, Patreon supporter, YouTube member, you can join us on Discord to check out the podcast live every week, ask questions to our guests, put in your little thoughts on the side chat, whatever you like. And we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to listen to it audio-wise. If you want to just plug it in during your commute, you can do that. But first, I got to say goodbye to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining me. Let everybody know where they can find your content.
Twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, YouTube.com/@the Captain's Table Podcast, if you want to see a podcast similar to this. And if you want to see me play video games, youtube.com/the AstroPub Live. And if you want to hear lore and more, you can check me out at youtube.com/TheAstroHistorian.
Very nice. Yeah, you guys, his show is really good because it feels like the entry gate to content creation for Star Citizen. Like if you're going to make content for Star Citizen, go on the Captain's Table, talk it out. It's always a good time.
I love to have new content creators come on and talk about their experiences as well, because it's always interesting to see people who are either from other communities coming to Star Citizen or just starting out as Star Citizen content creators themselves, to hear their thoughts on the game. Yeah. It's always different. It's always different than I'm expecting.
Yeah, it's good fun. Gives you that reminder of what it was like. Speaking of which, as he just mentioned, I want to mention, because I need to get the word out there, we are starting a new YouTube channel. We're actually moving the live stream over to Space Tomato Live. So if you're interested in keeping up with the streams and whatever comes from them, make sure to check that one out on YouTube. And for anybody who's watching the live stream, I'm not going offline. I will be jumping right back in a minute here. I just got to move my camera over and get everything set up, and we'll be back in game shortly. But thanks again, everybody, for listening. If you're live, you're chilling at home, watching this after the fact, doing whatever you do, second monitor content, I don't care. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for being here, folks. I'll catch y'all next week.